The Tommy Campbell Show. I can't stop laughing at the latest from Washington's premier ecological disaster zone. The Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool has officially become a global punchline thanks to Donald Trump destroying everything he touches and then trying to cover his tracks with the same skill level that he uses to do his hair into that sweet mullet. The man can't accept that his own golf course contractors botched the job, and it's hilarious. The thing is no longer a reflecting pool, it is a taxpayer-funded mood ring for government failure. But before I get into some of the latest lunacy, corruption, and full-blown chaos down at the National Mall, we have to look at the memes. The internet is absolutely trolling this thing into oblivion, and I had to make a few graphics of my own to join the party. Even California Governor Gavin Newsom jumped in, posting a picture of a mutated Donald Trump swamp monster rising from the slime. Honestly, not that far off from the real thing. And then we had Trump blessing some, I don't know, is that Stephen Miller or Kristi Noem without her morning makeup? This one is my favorite, a blue paint chip featuring Trump and his wingman. Oh, Jeff, what a beautiful friendship. Oh, and here comes Marjorie Taylor Greene like she just had a reflecting pool wild birth and she's off to do her CrossFit. I'm surprised Kennedy and Duffy haven't put one there. Never forget MTG posted this thinking she was showing off doing those pull-ups. That is not helping your body one bit. Biden, Trump. Any questions? The Strait of Warm Ooze. Fantastic. I love it. I love it. Oh, and we found the vandal. Yes, they're always after the drag queens. And is that George Santos DeVolder, Katara Goldbergstein with a box cutter? Okay. Melania, listen to me. No amount of Amazon documentary money is worth waking up to that. I posted this in the community and on my Facebook. Attention patriots, order a piece of history. Secure some of the reflecting pool today starting at $17.76. Use code DIAPERDON for 10% off. You know, I was deeply tempted to buy like a 1-800 number and actually take orders because, you know, the MAGA crowd would buy pallets of this failure and call it a victory. And my custom literary masterpiece, Mind Swamp. The ultimate field guide on how to promise to drain a swamp only to accidentally construct a multi-million-dollar toxic eco-hazard directly in front of Lincoln. Subscribe.
They went to the bottom, and it's not a paint job. It's very expensive. It's not rubber, but it's like rubber. And they went down with probably a box cutter or a very sharp razor of some kind or a knife. And they cut, and then they started ripping it up. You know why? Because they're sick people. And then the side of the pool, right at water level, they took razors and they started cutting this, you know, very expensive stuff. It's incredible stuff. It's beautiful. And it was so, and it's still beautiful. But we have one area where they cut it. It's still holding. It's not leaking. But they heard it. So in about probably maybe after July 4th or maybe before, I don't know, we'll let a little water out because it's at the edge. They'll cut it, they'll replace it, and it'll be as good as new. But
well, as you can see here, a little water is being let out, looking like Don Jr. having his downtown sores drained. A box cutter. The man actually wants us to believe that a highly trained cell of Antifa ninja frogmen slipped past the National Guard, swam out into 6 million gallons of stagnant water, and successfully brought down a massive national monument using the same Dollarama utility knife you used to open a delivery box from Amazon. Just how long do you think a box cutter blade is, Donald? To slice up a third of a mile of industrial lining underwater? This wasn't a quick act of vandalism. It would have to be a full-time construction shift that went as unnoticed as Tiffany.
this will last for at least 50 years, and you'll never have a leak. It's very strong. You couldn't, if you had a knife, I don't want to give anybody ideas. If you had a knife, you can't even cut it. So strong, so powerful. It's like powerful rubber. It is beautiful, sealed. And I looked at just one of the little pieces that they did to finish. It's like a piece of glass. Beautiful color, beautiful everything. You could never get anything like that.
50 years didn't even get close to 50 days. And never forget that the absolute kiss of death for any piece of material infrastructure is Donald Trump publicly assuring you that it is physically indestructible. This is a guy who suffers from chronic terminal overconfidence in raw materials. Remember the border wall that Mexico didn't pay for? He bragged it was an impenetrable, high-tech, unclimbable steel fortress, only for it to be defeated by a trip to Home Depot, the same DIY chain owned by a massive Trump donor. He did the exact same thing when he launched his gold gold-plated Trump-branded sneakers that flaked, and those official Trump watches that he practically treated like they were forged out of titanium and bulletproof Swiss sapphire glass. What happened to them? The people who maxed their Visa on the watches started opening their boxes only to find out the manufacturing was so cheap it arrived missing the letter T. He went from a knife can't cut it to a knife destroyed it faster than his watches went from Trump to rump. The man does not understand materials. He thinks military grade means it came in a box with an eagle on it.
And then the fake news tries to say, oh, well, it didn't work. Of course it worked. Everything I do works. What I do works. What I do best is build. And we fixed, I think it's 52, all over the city they're talking about it. But you know, the biggest thing is we have one of the safest cities. If you would have come here 2 years ago, you had a good chance of being mugged, although you're a very big guy. They would have mugged him up. They would have beat the hell out of him.
Yeah.
He would have said, I'm never going back. Now you can walk with your beautiful wife. You can walk with your friends down to a restaurant. You know, we were losing all our restaurants.
Everything I does work. Yeah, that is the exact same linguistic genius that thinks nobody knows there's a B in dumb, like it's a secret, and runs literacy campaigns without basic spell check. And watching him look someone in the eye, tell them the city's safe, and then aggressively whack their leg like an unstable uncle is ridiculous. Better get those trousers to the dry cleaner immediately now they have a fresh layer of Trump's hand makeup smeared across the knee. What I do best is build. I know construction. I say it here again and again on the show. Trump claims he's a builder, but he hasn't laid a brick or a willing woman in his life.
We caught some people vandalizing our beautiful reflecting pool. We have the reflecting pool. They took a cutter, a box cutter or something very sharp. And can you imagine, where did these people come up with this? And they threw a little fertilizer in the water, which is not good. Fertilizer doesn't go well with water. Clear, beautiful water doesn't work well. But they caught them. They actually caught them, and those guys have some problems ahead of them. But they did some damage, but it looks beautiful. I just looked at it, Doug, and it looks beautiful, and they're going to fix it. They cut the bottom with a knife and pulled it and tried to do it as much damage as possible. These are sick people.
Buddy, it's a stagnant concrete tray sitting under a humid DC sun. It doesn't need political sabotage to sprout slime. Basic biology will turn that thing into a giant matcha latte in 48 hours without any outside interference. If this were polluted by design, the sheer volume of material required to pull off a rapid contamination of the scale is completely hilarious. We're talking about a pool that holds 6.75 million gallons of water. For a midnight vandal to walk up to the edge and artificially force that massive body of water to break out in an explosive toxic green algae bloom overnight, they couldn't just throw in a little fertilizer, like a bag or two from Home Depot, would be less than a drop in the bucket. To force that much algae that quickly, you would need a convoy of fertilizer trucks backing into the National Mall like Farmageddon.
The vandalism is very real, despite what Tim Walz wants to say. It's an imaginary problem. No, it is not. It's a very real problem. In fact, I spoke with the National Park Service just before joining the show. They now have 17 police reports that have been filed in just the matter of a few days. There's actually been 6 arrests at the reflecting pool, where again, these deranged individuals, many of them longtime donors to the Democrat Party, to Barack Obama, to Act Blue, that have been vandalizing and desecrating our federal monument, one of the most beautiful monuments in the world, the reflecting pool. And that's why President Trump is not going to stop with this effort. We're going to not only hold those people accountable, but we're going to fix the pool, continue to make it beautiful from this despicable vandalism just in time to celebrate our nation's 250th birthday next week.
At this point, more people have been arrested involving the mechanics of the reflecting pool than the entire database of the Epstein files. And that says a lot. If you walk down the National Mall right now, the government has actually erected a giant, high-security chain link fence completely surrounding the water, like a full-blown barricade. They aren't trying to protect the public from the monument they poisoned with all the chemicals they dumped in it. They're trying to hide the fact that the nation's proudest landmark currently looks like a porta potty. But drawing attention to a total failure by putting a massive fence around it is peak Trump strategy. It is the exact same energy as when Melania randomly walked out to a White House microphone to address the media. Remember that? recently. She held a whole surprise press conference just to forcefully reject the baseless lies that Jeffrey Epstein originally introduced her to Trump. Up until that exact second, the internet had completely moved on from her backstory, but she just had to build a giant media fence around the rumor, which did nothing but put a massive stadium-sized spotlight on the exact thing her husband was begging everyone to forget. You try to fence off the embarrassment, you just make it the main attraction. I make this independent show on my own. If you love what I do, consider leaving me a tip, become a member for extras, hit up my referral links, and stream my stand-up on Spotify. Think about the sheer gymnastics of this narrative. According to the Trump team, wealthy, elderly, Democratic mega donors are apparently abandoning their cocktail parties, squeezing to full scuba gear, and executing midnight sabotage raids on a giant pond with box cutters from Dollarama. They are so desperate to avoid admitting that their handpicked contractors completely botched a basic plumbing and paint job that they were trying to turn a standard infrastructure failure into an international espionage thriller. They want you to believe a grandmother who cuts checks to Act Blue and Planned Parenthood is moonlighting as a Navy SEAL on TaskRabbit. Obama-era crews spent years doing an actual reconstruction. Trump claimed Obama and Biden blew hundreds of millions, which fact-checkers say is false. Donald Trump handed out a massive, non-competitive $14.7 million no-bid contract. Why did they get the contract? Because Trump bragged they had previously done work on the swimming pools at his private golf club. To handle the actual water, he hands out another $1.7 million non-bid contract to a company called Greenwater Solutions to install an unverified filtration system. And guess who owns that trust? Convicted felon and billionaire Florida real estate developer John J. Cafaro, who just happens to be Trump's longtime literal neighbor down at Mar-a-Lago and has pumped over $300,000 into Trump-aligned political campaign committees. You truly can't make this up. A Mar-a-Lago neighbor lands a massive, urgent, no-bid contract for a water purification system, and the pool immediately turns the exact color of his company name. Green water. They also used industrial Rhino Linings products to coat the bottom. And this is a nightmare for the brand. Rhino Linings is already drowning in lawsuits. In one recent case, a jury hit them with a $2 million verdict after a commercial building in Texas had more than 200 separate leaks because Rhino failed to properly vet or train its recommended installer. And the product choice here makes it even dumber. They used a coating called Pipeliner 5000, which sounds like a Peter North film. It's designed for dark underground pipes and covered wastewater tanks. You know, places famously protected from the blazing summer sun. It has zero UV stability, so the DC heat basically baked the lining until it started to separate from the floor. Then for the primer, they use Rhino 406, a rigid epoxy. Specialists say slapping rigid garage floor epoxy onto a 2,000-foot basin with over 2.5 miles of shifting concrete expansion joints is completely unconventional. Concrete expands and contracts in the heat. A rigid primer does not flex, so the whole thing started snapping, cracking, and peeling into giant slimy sheets, as you keep seeing on social media. This is why they're putting the fence around it. We don't want people to see our enormous failure. Experts warned from the beginning that using truck bed technology on the National Mall was an untested gamble. Rhino Linings is great if Lauren Boebert needs to protect the back of an F-150 from her clear heels and bad decisions. But it's not what you want to slap on a sun-baked underwater national landmark and then hope Lincoln handles the warranty claim. But the chef's kiss happened on May 7th. Trump wanted to inspect the progress, and because this is a guy who considers fitness being driven around a golf course, he didn't walk down the steps. His official motorcade drove directly onto the drained, freshly sealed bottom of the reflecting pool. The beast alone weighs nearly 20,000 pounds, and they drove that rolling panic room over delicate expansion joints before the industrial lining had fully cured. So while Trump screams about Democratic saboteurs, box cutters, and fertilizer conspiracies, the primary vandal who cracked the foundation of the National Mall may have been his own armored Suburban. The call was coming from inside the motorcade. "Oh, Tommy, I hope you got some Rogaine on Prime Day to fix that egg of yours. It was on sale and I missed it. I'm gonna be bald forever." I think this head is too far gone for creams, buddy, but thanks for the thought. I appreciate the concern from someone who spelled Rogaine wrong, made Prime Day one word, and abandoned punctuation like he owed it child support. Maybe worry less about what's not on top of my head and more about what's missing inside yours. MAGA tears. Geez, you libs are dumb. President Trump is making Washington beautiful with his Reno, and all you do is mock him. Okay, maybe don't front load your takedown of the libs by typing President out of the gate. Also, when you oddly abbreviate and capitalize Renos to Reno, You're taking things to Nevada. When the entire world is mocking Trump, it's for good reason. Every sane person can see the guy is a walking disaster, but you're standing ankle deep in green sludge trying to convince us it's a masterpiece. MAGA tears. The second this man declares an object invulnerable, here comes Marjorie Taylor Greene like she just had a reflecting pool wild birth. Wild birth. Oh, Jeffrey, you're so sweet. Oh, here comes Marjorie Taylor Greene like she just had a reflecting pool wild birth. Did the pool birth her, or did she give one in the pool? What's going on?
The Tommy Campbell Show is the best political comedy show on YouTube, and I hope you subscribe.